with the chairman of the elections committee. Mostly I will be speaking about international dimension of and foreign policy. Okay, so why now and why elections 2 years ahead of the planned election? I think after end of the conflict of 2020, after events September 2023, Azerbaijan fully restored the control over its territory. First in the modern history of Azerbaijan, since 1991, Azerbaijan now is able to control the whole territory, to exercise jurisdiction over the whole territory, and it's first time the elections and election polls will be installed over the whole territory of Azerbaijan. It is symbolic, but also from the legal point of view, very important. Because basically when Azerbaijan got independence in 91, Karabakh was in the control of separatists, and then in 92, 94, we lost a big chunk of our territory, over 20% was under occupation. So we never had an opportunity to exercise judicial, administrative control over territory of Azerbaijan. This is the first of all. It's about the jurisdiction, it's about historical fact that we're gonna have elections over the whole territory. Second, I think the end of the conflict with Armenia opens up a way for truly profound internal domestic transformation of Azerbaijan. That transformation has been already begun, and in various forms the economic, social and other reforms have been implemented in the country. But now, because so much resources, financial resources first of all, was devoted to military purposes.
Please invite the Farid.
Yes, okay. Sen İspanyolca diyebilirsin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, she's not that well in Spanish, but if something. Okay, sorry. Okay.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
So we can devote now many resources to our areas, to education, to social development, to economic development. One of the important goals of the government is to repopulate liberated territories. Tomorrow you will have opportunity to visit those territories. Especially in the international press, we've seen that the coverage of the Armenian-Azerbaijani conflict was one-sided. Not much information available about the destruction and landmine contamination inflicted by Armenian occupation, but that will require significant resources to rebuild villages, to rebuild cities, to rebuild infrastructure, electric grid, sewage system, everything, because it was razed to the ground. That's definitely will be priority for the government, but along with that, because now we will have resources available, some other areas of our domestic, let's say, economy will get more money. At the international level also, we hope that we will move toward peace. We will sign peace agreements with Armenia. That's one of the priorities. We still have some problems in peace negotiations, or more exactly, in negotiations over the peace treaty with Armenia. There is certain provisions we cannot agree, but the process is going on. The most important that we have a unique opportunity to build peace and cooperation after 30 years of conflict in the region. If it's reciprocated by Armenia, then we are speaking about completely different region, completely different environment in the South Caucasus. Of course, the geopolitical situation around the South Caucasus is very complex, In the north, we have the Russian-Ukrainian war. In the south, we have the conflict in the Middle East, around Gaza, around Iran. But Azerbaijan is stable, domestically stable, and that's the one important achievement. You have to understand the people, especially my generation, we went through the very painful 90s. We went through the humiliation associated with the loss of our territories, with occupation and destruction, with the influx of refugees and internally displaced persons. Economic hardship, chaos. But the Azerbaijan overcame it. So that's indeed we opening a new chapter in our history. So these elections will usher in new development in Azerbaijan. That's a nutshell. Probably we can, if you have any questions about. But again, I'm not any questions with regard to election process, technicalities. It should be addressed to the chairman of elections committee. We will have meeting today, yeah, and I will be. I'm tuned more to speak about foreign policy, international environment. Yes, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Eno from Indonesia. I have two questions for you. First time about the peace agreement that you said now it's facing the obstacles, especially on the negotiation. Could you please elaborate for us about that in terms of that? And second, we know that the presidential election will be held in Karabakh for the first time. What do you think about the decision? About the election in there for the first time to change the world to see Azerbaijan? Thank you.
About the peace process, peace negotiations, there are several provisions. As you know, the basis of the peace agreement is the proposal made by Azerbaijan in February 2022, and the core of that approach, the concept, is the mutual recognition of territorial integrity of two countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan. Because Armenian constitution, and especially Armenian Declaration on Independence, has clauses, has provisions which openly claims territory of Azerbaijan. For example, in declaration, it refers to the decision made by, illegal decision, made on 1st December 1989 about unification of Karabakh with Armenia. That was a decision during the Soviet time, and during the last years of the Soviet time, 1989. That was illegal even from the Soviet point of view, but also from the international point of view. We inherited borders, administrative borders of the former Soviet socialist republics, Armenia and Azerbaijan. But Armenians made that into their declaration, and their constitution also recognized Declaration on Independence as a part of their legislation. Their second president, Robert Kacharyan, who was born and lived in Karabakh, he became, in 1998, second president of Armenia. When he submitted his candidature, some people challenged because the Armenian legislation has a clause that the president of Armenia can be elected only a person who lives for 5 years in Armenia. Until 94, 95, Kacharyan was in Karabakh. He was the leader of separatists there. So, but the Constitutional Court of Armenia, they said that his residence in Karabakh can be considered as residence in Armenia. So we have Constitutional Court decision, we have Constitution of Armenia, which basically openly claims territory of Azerbaijan. So let's say hypothetically we sign agreement tomorrow, peace agreement with Armenia, in 10 years from now, Constitutional Court of Armenia says that treaty was illegal and null and void because it contradicted the constitution. So we expect that Armenia will change its constitution. We have some positive feedback from Armenia. The Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan recently said that the constitution of Armenia should be changed, it should be a new constitution. That's the one problem in legal field. The second problem, Armenia wants the Institute of Guarantors, international guarantors. You know, again, international experience manifests that you can have the Institute of Guarantors, but does not guarantee anything. Budapest Memorandum has 4 guarantors: United Nations, United States, United Kingdom, and Russia. And as you know, Budapest Memorandum was signed in '94, and Ukraine get rid of nuclear weapons in return for the assurances of its territorial integrity. 20 years from that, this treaty is no longer valid. So we don't believe that the international guarantors, that institute, will guarantee peace. The main guarantee of peace is 2 countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan. So we don't need sort of, you know, teachers or superiors to us. So we have to really make commitment to each other. So that's the second problem. The third problem is related to delimitation, on basis of which maps should be delimitation conducted. And Armenia insists only on the maps of 1970s. So that's also the question of negotiations. One map, or why not another? So that's the third group of questions. Of course, there are some other details in the treaty, but I think with the goodwill, we can move forward. And as I said, the willingness of Armenian leadership to change its constitutions and to get rid of the clauses related to territory of Azerbaijan is a good sign. So that's about the peace treaty, difficulties which we have, but I think it's doable. I think those changes, those amendments can be achieved. The fact that it's first time, you know, when territory of Azerbaijan was occupied, basically in '91, when Azerbaijan got independence, the territory was under control. Karabakh was under control of separatists, and then in 2 years we lost some other part of our territory. So symbolically, it's very important that first time it's conducted over the whole territory. As you know, tomorrow you will go to territories, yes? You will see the huge destruction. Scale of destruction is unimaginable. Though the Western, especially Western media, has not reported what Armenians did on our territory, mostly they are focused on Armenian grievances. I don't have time now to dwell into that, why, and etc. But we can see some double standards, not only related to South Caucasus, but to some other conflicts too. Anyway, that was the situation. So you will see the situation on the ground, and this is exactly why we are conducting those elections in those territories. And people already began moving. There is not much people now on liberated territories because of the scale of destructions. But the government has planned to relocate of all refugees there. And as the process will be moving forward, more people and more settlements will be there. Okay, yes.
Excuse me, Therese Margolis from Post News, Mexico.
Yeah.
I have a question with the addendum. You said that you believe that the peace treaty is doable, but you didn't really give a time frame. And also, what do you consider will be the biggest of the remaining obstacles? What do you think will be the most
Yeah, I would abstain from saying some definitive term when we will sign an agreement, because we had.
But ballpark.
Yeah. Well, maybe, again, maybe this year, much will depend on Armenian side. Much will depend how quickly we can change constitution. So that's why I'm not in a position to say the term when it will be.
And the
Yes.
biggest obstacle?
Well, the biggest obstacles, Armenia, Armenian diaspora, radical elements in Armenian diaspora, and some geopolitical players like France. They unfortunately meddling into this situation, not in a constructive way, trying to ignite again animosity and supporting one side against another is not the strategy which will bring peace to the South Caucasus. Yes, please.
Farid Shafiyev, special correspondent from Pakistan. We were so happy in 2020 because since our childhood, we saw your country struggling, and finally, under your current president Ilham Aliyev, you finally managed to get the rightful territory which belongs to you back from Armenia. But you mentioned a few minutes ago the double standards. How would you like this community of journalists that has been gathered from all across the world to report? Because I have been to liberated territories and I have seen the destruction which Armenia caused.
Yes.
And there's pigs in the mosque. Only 2 were left, otherwise the rest all were demolished. So that sort of things were never reaching us through BBC or CNN or others. So what are your expectations from this visit of journalists to the Karabakh area tomorrow? And how would you like the international community to look upon your rightful victory? They are calling upon it in all other terms except Azerbaijan getting its rightful territory back. Your thoughts, please.
Indeed, we have this problem with double standards and with the biased view on the conflict, especially from the Western media. And the reason, there are a few factors behind that. First, it's what I would call Orientalist perspective on the conflict. So many times in the news, global news, it was reported that this conflict between Muslim Azerbaijanis and Christian Armenians. It is far from the truth. Conflict has no religious connotation. People suffer because of territorial claims. Armenia has very good relationship with many Muslim countries, including neighboring Iran. We have good relationship, strategic relationship with Christian countries, including our neighbor Georgia. So it's not about religion, but always sometimes simplification is easy way to report the conflict. So that's the one reason. The second reason, when the conflict began, we were dealing with very extensive and very powerful Armenian lobby, especially in countries like United States and France, with entrenched and strong power in media, in academia. So as compared to young Azerbaijani independence, we didn't have extensive diasporas in those countries. So I think that's the problem, why it was reported like that. The third problem, it's related to the narrative, Armenian narrative. Again, because we have a present historically in some countries, the conflict, how the conflict began. It began in 1987, 88, with the slogan of unification of Karabakh with Armenia. So it was about the territorial enlargement. But in 92, when both countries became independent, Armenia and Azerbaijan, they changed the tactic. They understood Armenian nationalists, their leaders and their supporters. They understood that the unification is not the way how you can promote your cause in international arena. So they changed tactic and they changed the tactic and they start speaking about self-determination. Because self-determination has much more positive connotation in globally. So they were speaking that the Karabakh should be independent, but they never really concealed the fact that their final goal is to unify with Armenia. But self-determination was buzzword, they worked on around that, and also victimhood. They always try to portray themselves as the victims of events of the First World War and later on the hands of Azerbaijanis here. Of course, unfortunately, the conflict was accompanied by violence from both sides. But the truth that as a result of the First Karabakh War, our territories was under occupation. About 30,000 Azerbaijanis were killed, including massacres in Khojaly, where the whole town was razed to the ground and the whole population was killed. And it was reported by Human Rights Watch and some other international organizations. But again, that stories, and for some reasons in 90s, international media focused on the Balkans, on some other events. It never really, South Caucasus was the hotspot or for the media. So you see a number of factors contributed to such coverage. And even today, they all speaking some media, so the Armenian population left Karabakh about ethnic cleansing, etc. The conflict not began in September 2023, not even in 2020. It began in 1980s. It began with the ethnic cleansing of Azerbaijanis from Armenia and then from Karabakh. So it is complex history, but finally we come to the point when we can build a peace. And I hope that I want to end my response to your question with the positive note that with all hurdles, and you asked about some times, maybe this year will be some turning point in our relationship. Yes, here and then. Yes, it's right.
Hi, Rosario Castagnet from Argentina. Here, there we have a big diaspora of Armenia. We know what you are talking about, but I'd like to ask you two things. You say a lot of this year. Perhaps this year you have the treatment. Perhaps this year, this year you will have COP29. I think this is very important for Azerbaijan and Azerbaijan in the world, and all the results of many years and months working about how do you see Azerbaijan in the world. And later, I would like to ask you about the conflict of Iran, Iraq, and United States. How do you see that, and if you think that it will complicate or the conflict will help you to, in some points of all the conflicts that are all around the world, if it will help or not to Azerbaijan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we are hosting COP29. It's a big event, and it shows that positive ambitions of Azerbaijan. We also hosted some other international events previously. I think generally, sometimes we hear the negative coverage again here. Oil-rich country host COP29 or COP events, and before United Arab Emirates hosted. But no one questioned when Canada and Britain hosted COP, because they are biggest producers, much more biggest producers of oil than we are. And still, in terms of the pollution and CO2 pollutions, we are much more contributing. But again, it's the stereotypes. Actually, Azerbaijan now have a big project on alternative energy, wind and solar. So I think our strength in hosting COP29, exactly how oil-producing countries can move and make transition to environmentally friendly alternative energy sources. We have, as probably you've heard, that we have huge project with Romania and Hungary, Georgia, Romania, Hungary, to transfer alternative energy through Black Sea cable to Europe. So it's not only about oil and gas. There is some alternative sources who are working on it. There are some other events we are hosting, and again, hopefully, those resources which we devoted to the military industry, buying weapons and etc. Well, we have to be strong, but at least some of those resources can be channeled to build solar power plants and other, projects. As far as the international environment, this is indeed very difficult question. We indeed have very complex environment. Russian-Ukrainian war is still continuing, and I don't see even the sign of end of this conflict. Middle East is on fire, and we see the potential expansion of the conflict. I mean, I don't think that expansion can play a positive role. We're trying to stay away. Or I would say, again, we are trying to develop balanced relationship with all international actors. In the meantime, this is our neighborhood, it's our neighbors. This is what we can do. We have to find modus operandi with those neighbors. Sometimes we hear, that's why I'm saying when some countries like France, we're coming to the region and supporting one country against another, we are not contributing to peace. We are promoting very narrow geopolitical agenda. If they really think about people on the ground, people who live in those villages, and even people who live in Armenia, how many migrants they have. Actually, it is indeed alarming trend in Armenia that their population is shrinking. So they, I think, should, France and their partners, they make every effort to bring peace into the region, not to ignite animosity and further conflicts. But again, I'm not in a position to say what the situation will be around Iran or Iraq. I think much will depend on some other events, maybe not even related to the region. Elections in the United States, I think that will have huge impact on Russian-Ukrainian war and also on the situation around Iran. So there are so many denominators. So it's hard to predict what will be in our region. Yes, please.
Yes. Do you consider that the Armenian lobbying battle for what they used to call Nagorno-Karabakh is over? And let's remember, they blame Azerbaijan due to sponsoring the so-called caviar diplomacy. But let me tell you something. While former leader of the lower chamber in the USA visited Armenia, Nancy Pelosi, they were accused for spending at least $22 million in order to brought Nancy Pelosi to Armenia. So what can you exactly tell us about that?
Thank you very much for your question, and you already basically said what the situation. I mean, every country trying to make PR, Azerbaijan is no exception. So we're trying to play the game which was imposed on us, and that game is called the lobby game. So Armenia has very strong lobby in Western countries, and Argentina, you know, it's one of the countries with strong Armenian lobby. In our country, United States and France, Armenians making millions of donations to the campaign of local politicians. But if we try to, yes, we try also to hire lobby companies and to lobby for the interests of Azerbaijan. And it's exactly became the spotlight of criticism and the smear campaign. Believe me, the amount which we spend and Armenians spend is not even comparable. But we have to give credit. Many Armenians live for decades in Western societies. We know how to operate there. We have figures like, let's say Kardashian. Okay, she's such an influencer. If she posts something on Instagram, even she has no clue about politics, but it became, you know, trendy because of so many followers she has. So this is how, unfortunately, international, sometimes social media works. I think the Americans, taxpayers, they're wasting their money on those trips, on those campaigns. It would be better if the same 20 million to spend on Armenia some projects in rural Armenia, because rural Armenia is disappearing. And we should not blame, they blame everything on Turkey, on Azerbaijan. Armenia is ruled by Armenians, not by us. So they should blame themselves for what's going on in Armenia. And if the supporters of Armenia in the United States, or Nancy Pelosi, is interested in development in Armenia, those money can be spent much wisely. But she's not interested. She's into most of the politicians. They are interested in the re-election. So that's why they're igniting. Recently, you know, the Robert Kennedy, the junior, he also made appeal that we need to support Armenia. Vivek Ramaswamy from Republicans. I mean, you should ask the question, why American Republican candidate suddenly became interested in Armenian-Azerbaijan issue? And by the way, he claims that the Azerbaijan and Ukrainian lobby is stronger than Armenian one. I mean, everyone can laugh about that, you know. Our lobby, unfortunately, cannot be even compared to the Armenian one. I think this is how it works. Many times, previously before this position, I was ambassador in Canada. And when I was approaching local politicians, they said, okay, you know how it works. My constituency is Armenian. The foreign minister of Canada, she's from Laval. It's the region in Montreal with heavy Armenian votes, constituencies. Surely, she will be supporting Armenian cause. The first question when the politicians, when I meet, says, how many Azerbaijanis I have in my constituency? Okay, how many you have in Montreal? Not many, 100 maybe. Azerbaijanis live in Montreal. And you have several thousand. Kennedy, they are from Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, there is the neighborhood called Watertown. Maybe someone will heavier in Armenian community. California, we have even the place called Little Armenia. So, of course, we cannot compete with that. But again, at the end of the days, all those millions spent on that political campaigns, on these media campaigns, has not brought anything beneficial to Armenia. That's why I think now you can see a big division between Armenian government and Armenian diaspora. Because they finally, in Armenia, people start realizing that the diaspora is pursuing their own sort of imagined dreams, while the Armenians are facing real economic hardship and challenges because of isolation. The only way out of this deadlock is peace treaty and cooperation. Yes, please.
I'm going to ask the question on behalf of
Yeah.
Roberto Hernandez from Colombia and Press. So, Mr. Hernandez wanted to ask that for you as the citizen of Azerbaijan personally, what does it mean that Azerbaijan as a whole can participate in the presidential elections this year for the first time in like 30
Yeah.
years?
Thank you. I mentioned by the way, my ancestry from Shusha, the city which was under Armenian occupation for 30 years. We used to have a house in Shusha, my grandfather's house. It's now destroyed. I went to Shusha in 2021, tried to locate this house, and the people said that it's no longer there. When the Shusha was under occupation, it was 92, I was 23 years old. So now I'm 55, 54. So basically, half of my life, we lived under this sense of occupation, sense of humiliation. So of course, for me, it is the question not only of pride, but also justice served. That now there is the polling station in Shusha, and people will return there and vote in Shusha.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
yes, please.
Good morning, Chairman. My name is Surya Krishna. I am from Bari. I wanted to know, do you finalize the formalities of transferring business between Armenia and Azerbaijan?
Do you what? Sorry?
Do you finalize the procedure of transferring the entire business between Armenia and Azerbaijan? Do you still think that Armenia is holding some business?
In Karabakh?
Yeah.
No, I don't think. We now fully control Karabakh. No, there is not. I mean, the whole jurisdiction, administrative, everything now in Azerbaijan hands.
What is your agreement with Russia?
Relationship?
Are they going to, Russian military is going to be in Azerbaijan? How long they are going to be here in Azerbaijan?
Well, until 2025, it's under trilateral statement, which we signed in 2020. So, the Azerbaijan has status of non-aligned countries. We don't have any military base on our territory, unlike Armenia, which hosts 2 military Russian bases. So I think, well, we'll see what's going on, what will be going on in 2025. There are some international factors will determine that, but I think the desire of all Azerbaijanis is not to have any foreign troops on our territory.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Alberto from Daily News Hungary, Hungary. And my first question is about, for Hungary is really important, I guess, for the Hungarian government, the relation with Azerbaijan. But also it's for the government is important, the Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Azerbaijan got a lot of critics about a lot of people, 10,000 Christians left the Karabakh. So what you think about this situation, and how would you protect the Christians' heritage and Christians building in Karabakh?
Yeah, I already said that mostly, yes.
I have some questions, but
yeah. But this conflict is portrayed as a religious sometimes in the media, understandable with all this trend for the last, from Second World War, and especially from the Cold War, because the fault lines before was communism, capitalism. Now, since 90s, fault lines is nationalism, including religion, class of civilization, as was put forward by Samuel Huntington. But 100 meters from here, you will see Armenian church. Just if you go out of this building and just walk 100 meters, it's untouched.
I saw that.
Yes. About 3 or 4 blocks from here, you can see Jewish synagogue. It's functioning. It's and about kilometer, even less, maybe 7-8 minutes to walk. There is the Orthodox Russian church here. So there is no, I believe, any suppression of religious here. But again, the so much negative campaign about by the Armenian lobby and their supporters, that the questions about the fate of Christians here. We have all denominations. The Catholic Church here also, though we don't have much Catholics here, mostly expats. But traditional Jews and Christians lived here for centuries, from the Middle Ages, and they still live here. With regard to Armenian churches now, the situation also in the media, those churches which is built before occupation, because what happened after 91, Armenians started building the religious institutions here. It's illegal under 4th Geneva Convention. You cannot alter the occupied territories. So this is completely different questions. For example, there was some temple they built in the military unit, occupied, deployed on our territories. So it's dismantled because it was illegal structure. But our churches, like this church was built in 19th century. It's protected by the government. With regard to Armenians who left Azerbaijan, we have a few hundreds who still remains in Azerbaijan. Those who would like to return, they should apply for Azerbaijani citizenship, accept Azerbaijan jurisdiction, and then they welcome. Their property is protected in Karabakh, and we fully adhere to our international obligations. There is another problem, that the media tends only to speak about Armenian refugees. But we have 300 Azerbaijani refugees from Armenia. Their right to return also is, according to international law, is still valid. The Armenians has no desire to discuss that side of the conflict, but the Armenian was completely cleansed from Azerbaijanis. So objectively, we face this smear campaign. We have to overcome it. And you will see with your own eyes what happened on occupied territories. I think that's the best answer.
Okay, just
yes, please.
2 more questions. One of them, I think it's, as you said, Armenia has 2 Russian-based, military base, but I think everybody was surprised. Actually, I was surprised when I was reading a news about in 2023, the US Army had a military exercise in Armenia. So how you can comment this?
From what I've heard, Armenians, I mean, those military exercises, we also have military exercises, and they sometimes have. But from what I've heard, Armenia is not going to leave Russian military union, neither they are going to leave economic union with Russia. So probably it's another show off, like Kardashian's show off. We are good at that.
Okay, and my last question, it's about the European Union. How do you describe the relation with the EU, especially with Hungary as well, but most of the EU?
EU is an important partner of Azerbaijan. Yes, we have some disagreements with individual EU countries like France and Netherlands, but the whole EU is important economic, political, and humanitarian partner of Azerbaijan. Moreover, we have with 9 countries, including Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Italy, Poland, Hungary, Romania, I said, we have agreement on strategic partnership with 9 EU members. So it much depends now how we'll move forward. We used to work on new agreement between Azerbaijan and EU. So now we're facing some problems because of the especially French and German. Some German, not let's say, there is no kind of, in Germany there are differences how the parties, we had very good relationship with Germany in 90s when the power was in different hands. Germany supported our territorial integrity, but lately they are positioned more aligned to France. It's probably general Franco-German alliance is sort of, but still I think both countries important partners for Azerbaijan. So we hope that we will overcome, but that should be, you know, in order to make tango, two should dance. So I think it's not much, not everything depends on us, but on our partners too.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please.
My name is Hasdan from Malaysia. You see, you have a lot of issues to deal with in your country, issues with in Karabakh, and also the region is not so stable in terms of politically. So why you call the election earlier? Does it going to jeopardize whatever? Because now you have to concentrate on the election rather than the issue that you have to settle down.
As I said, it was first of all symbolically important to have elections over the whole territory. We never had that chance for these 30 years of our independence, 30 plus. The second, actually, for another 7 years we will have stable government, and taking into account what the unstable situation around us, stability inside is very important. So I don't think it's anything, this election jeopardizes everything. As vice versa, it's solidifying. It will be clear who is in charge. And in the context of what's going on our southern borders and the northern borders, I think elections result will show that Azerbaijan, what priorities Azerbaijan has with relationship to its international partners. Any other questions? Yes. What? Yes, my card. Yes, of course. I will give you my card. Yeah. Thank you very much. I wish you a pleasant stay, and tomorrow you will visit territories. If you have any questions, you can contact me.